I'm Jeff Brown, president and founder of the Biz Foundry. And part of what we teach in our Entrepreneur Center while serving the 14 counties of the Upper Cumberland area is really modern entrepreneurship, a new line of thinking, and kind of how do we get out of this line of thinking that I write a plan that's 40, 50, 60 pages, and what if I'm wrong, right? So should you spend your time developing this full-fledged business plan, which you do need? We're not against the business plan, but you need a lot of information before you do that. So where we work with entrepreneurs a lot is this idea of how do you prove things faster? It's kind of the lean launch version, or you hear about the lean startup, and it's all based on this idea of lean, is how do I find out information faster, cheaper? I don't go rent a 5,000 square foot building and then figure out a year later that I have a 3-year lease and I need 2,000 square feet. So how do we do this idea of lean? And it's also this idea of most business plans we see talk about what I would say operational management, accounting, legal, all those things. And those are really things that you can hire others to do, and you should have other people helping do that. Now, you've still got to make decisions, but the business model canvas is a very lean, down and dirty, iterative version of what hopefully will eventually wind up in your business plan with some fact behind it. So we use the term evidence-based entrepreneurship, proving things, all those kind of things. And people ask us, what are you talking about? Well, really, you're making a lot of assumptions when you say, I'm going to start a business, or I've invented this thing. So how do we get your assumptions, turn them into some real data before you spend a ton of money, a lot of time, whatever it may be? That how do you find out the answers to these unknowns sooner? So a little bit of explanation of the business model canvas is that it developed over really the last 10 years as a modern version of entrepreneurship. And what had happened is up until that time, entrepreneurs had always been taught that a startup was a mini version of a large company. And honestly, that couldn't be any further from the truth. You don't have the resources, you don't have the teams, you don't have divisions. When you're first starting out, your title may be CEO, but really what you're doing is you're janitor, marketer, everything that has to be done. So how do we get this on paper and something that should almost change every day through this process of what we're going to talk about called customer discovery? But let's just get into the business model canvas itself. So it's just a tool. It's a tool designed to get you thinking about your business and a customer-driven business, not necessarily your technology or your thing. So for the purposes of this talk, we assume that your product is good or your service is good. So we're not going to get into the how do you make a better widget. There's other places for that. So what is the business model canvas? So it really gives you the structure, like I said, of a business plan without all the work and the improvisation of the back of the napkin sketch that you hear a lot about, without all the water stains, right? And then think of it as an outline to help you discover facts that will later go into your business plan. It really has 9 sections or elements, and together these elements kind of provide an easily understood view of what are the key drivers to make your idea work and your business successful. So it's really breaking it down into, the old saying of how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. So let's at least break it down into 9 parts before we start taking bites. Why should you use it? Honestly, time has proven that it should be used to get all your assumptions or guesses. Really, please understand, when you're first starting out, all these are assumptions. They're guesses. Who's your customer? Oh, it's this guy or this family, or those are my best customers. Well, that's a guess. You've not proven any of this. So when you start doing financial projections, they're a total guess. And then we see in the business plan, you did a 3-year projection based on your initial guesses. So if you project a guess out 3 years, then we think that becomes a fairy tale, because then you start adding body to the guesses and none of it was really true. Could be true. How do we find out those parts and those assumptions are true or untrue quicker, cheaper, and without wasting a lot of time? This is kind of what it looks like. And I've done this slide. These sections are dependent on each other. Please understand that. When you change the customer segment, the value proposition could change. So any change could create changes in one of the other sections. They're dependent on each other. And please understand that. The other part of this is, so kind of the right side, those 5 sections on the right side are money, right? So that's income. That's money coming into the door. What have I got to do to get this business to make money? Because part of what we talk about a lot is build it and they will come hardly ever works. So how do you figure out how to get customers? And so that's what the right side of the business model is for, is do I really have something here that someone will pay for? So how do you use the business model canvas? So put your assumptions, your guesses, for each customer segment on paper. Don't worry about how right or wrong they are. You're going to prove that out later, but just get them on paper. And you may start out with 3 or 4 different versions of the business model canvas, or you may have 3 or 4 customer segments, which then generate 3 or 4 other things on the canvas. So what we're going to really talk about then later on is get out of the building and talk to people. So sitting in your office guessing on what everybody wants is a recipe for disaster. Get out and talk to real people in the real world. Not a big fan of surveys. I see people, I'll send this survey out. So let's talk about what you and I do when we get a survey. So let's say it has 20 questions and we open it up. Yeah, I'll take your survey. Then the phone starts ringing. You answer the first 2 or 3 questions pretty honestly, put a little thought into it. Now, what are you doing by about the 6th or 7th question? So let's say it's the ultimate 0 through 10 rating of a survey. Well, now you're just going down through there clicking 7, 8, 9. I don't want to give anybody a 10 and I don't want to give anybody a 0. You're putting no thought into that whatsoever. So, we see in these surveys that people send, it's a lot of false positives. It's just people tend to not want to hurt your feelings, to where when you're having a one-on-one conversation with them, you get real information. Everybody wants to encourage you, which leads to read the book, The Mom Test. You can buy it on Amazon. You can get it lots of places. Read that book, because your mom will always tell you have a great idea because she loves you and wants you to be successful. Your boyfriend or girlfriend or whoever will tell you that. But so read that book. It's a short read. It's a lot of fun. Another book, as we get into this idea of talking to people, it's called Talking to Humans. It's a free PDF online. Google it. You can get it. Contact us. We'll get it to you. And then just Google Lean Launch. Steve Blank is kind of the leader of the Lean Launchpad. And so look through that material. Here's a fact. Everybody gives opinions on why businesses fail. They were bad money managers. They didn't have enough money. They were whatever. And in the world of social media, businesses can fail, honestly, just because they made a silly 30-second statement on Facebook. Those are different things. But from our vantage point as an entrepreneur center and using the business model canvas, businesses don't fail because they run out of money. That's usually what everybody says. They fail from a lack of customers. They never got enough customers to be profitable. They lack customers because they didn't provide enough value to the customer segments they were trying to sell to or create value for. It could be one segment or it could be multiple segments. That's why they failed. We've never had anybody come to us and go, I'm going out of business because I have so many customers, I don't know what to do. So in our 8 years so far, we just never seen that happen. Is I have so much business, I'm going broke. That's never what we hear. What we hear is, I have a great building, I have a great accounting system, I have a great legal setup, I have this, I have that are things, that are stuff. But yet I don't have a way to get customers and get money from them. That's called a value proposition. And so running out of money is the symptom of not having enough customers, that you failed to ever get enough customers to be profitable. And then kind of a joke here, but important safety tip. Don't be one of those entrepreneurs. Make sure you understand how to get customers before you do any of those other things. Take a look a little deeper on the business model canvas. So again, understand this theory that everything that goes in here is a guess. You've got to prove or disprove it by talking to real people in the real world. The idea of customer segments, and people who teach the business model canvas have different ideas of, is value proposition first or customers first. Doesn't really matter. Those 4 segments of going from right to left of customer segments, customer relationships, channels, and value propositions are so tied together, it doesn't matter where you start. But usually, we normally start with customers. Who are your customers? What does that mean? Customer segments. Who are your customers? Why do they buy this thing? What do they want with it? What's the problem you're solving for them? Now, again, think of this idea. Customers don't exist for you. You exist for customers. So when we say who are your customers and what's the value is not to you, the entrepreneur, your company. What's the value to the customer? What problem are you solving for them? Don't guess what the problem is. Talk to them and find out what the problem is. What job do they need done, right? Do they need a pain cured? Are they trying to get a gain, make more money by doing this? If you're selling to businesses especially, is it something that they're dealing with every day that's just a hassle for them and they'd love to have a piece of software that takes care of that? And the gain could be time, it could be money, frustration. Gains can be lots of things and pains can be lots of things. And what you can charge for your widget or product or whatever is often determined by how bad is the pain. So, if you have a slight headache, you might take a Tylenol, you might not. But if you have a pounding migraine, you will pay the $22 at the airport gift shop for a couple of Tylenol, right? And so how bad is the pain? How bad do they need it solved? Or how big is the gain they're getting? The bigger the gain, the more they'll pay you to do this for them. And then another question is, what's the competition? And how are they solving the problem now? Or how are they filling the unmet need now, right? So think of food. There are a million places to get food. So why does somebody go to a drive-through versus a fast casual restaurant? Or why do they do sit down? So, again, how are they solving the problem and what do they see wrong with their current solution? And honestly, sometimes the answer to what are they doing to solve it is nothing. That is an answer. Next part is value proposition. So the theory being here that if you understand the customer, their needs, wants, buying habits, how their day looks, what they do during the day, how they make decisions, is that you need to know that so you know what the problem is and how does your solution provide value to them. And what is that value? So what needs are you satisfying? What's your value proposition unique from all the other people out there, right? So food. There's lots of ways. What's your value proposition of why they should come to your restaurant? What's your value proposition of why they should use your accounting software instead of the other choices? So, and again, that also goes back to who are your customers. You can't really separate these two. They're the two most important things you got to think about. And then who are your competitors? We often see people come to us and say, oh, there's no competition. Well, that's hardly ever true. I give the idea of a cupcake shop that a lady came to us years ago, and when we asked who's your competition, there was not a cupcake shop in this town. So yes, there was not a cupcake shop, but so she said, I don't have any competition. And the question we ask her is, Well, don't convenience stores sell cupcakes? Don't grocery stores sell cupcakes? Don't people sell cupcake mix you can make at home? You have competition, right? And so those are your competitors, whether you ever thought of that or not. And so you always have competition. And then, but what do you do that's different from them? How do you provide more value than they do? That's what you're trying to prove here. And then channels. So channels is an interesting section to this, that it can be a lot of things, but we're talking about generally distribution channels, marketing channels, those kind of things. So how are your products and services promoted, sold, and delivered, right? Are you going to ship them yourself? Are you going to use a fulfillment service? You're going to sell them on Amazon and they handle the money and do all the order fulfillment? Or are you going to have a warehouse that you ship out of yourself? Why are you using that channel? Is it working? What does it cost to use that channel? All channels, be it marketing, distribution, whatever, have a cost to them, right? And then really that basic question again of what marketing, sales, distribution, and delivery channels do your customers want or the market requires, right? So are you they come to your brick and mortar store to pick it up, you're gonna ship it, again, you're gonna sell it through Amazon, use a fulfillment service, all those kind of things. How does your customer want to find, order, and receive delivery of your product or your service? Look at today's world of remote workers, right? So do you necessarily have to fly to Oklahoma to meet with your customer? Can you do it on Zoom, right? So let's say you're a consultant. Do you have to be there? Do you spend the $1,200 on flight and hotel to be there for a 2-hour meeting, or do you do it on Zoom? That's a different delivery channel of your service. And so think through those things. Definitely the third most important, if you ask me. How do you interact with the customer through their journey of doing business with you, right? How do you get customers? How do they find you? How do they know you even exist? Much less do they want your product, right? So brief sidetrack here is understand the difference in marketing and sales. So marketing is to get them to take a look at you. Sales is to get their money, right? Decide who's a real prospect, because the other thing we get is everybody's my customer. No, they're not. There are over 7 billion people in the world. Everybody is not your customer. I saw my wife a couple of weeks ago watching the show, what's the thing about the wedding dresses? So yes to the dress, right? So I only have one child. She's been married for almost 10 years. I am no longer anywhere in the buying decision for a wedding dress. So, wedding dresses are a good example. Not everybody's a customer. And then this idea of repeat customers, right? So if you're in the wedding dress business, you're going to spend a lot of money to get a customer, but you're not going to get many repeats out of that, according to how much time they spend with divorce lawyers. But generally, it's a one-time sale. So you got to make sure that your profit on that is more than you spent to get the customer. That's later in some of our classes we want you to take, is understanding how much you spend per customer to get that customer, cost of customer acquisition. How do you keep customers, right? What's the service after you've met them or made a sale? Is it through the web? Is it through chat? Is it through text? Is it through Q&As? How do you answer their problems? Service I don't know how to get this to happen in the software. How do you tell me how to do that? What's your help section? Customer service. And then understand, and this ties into channels too, but it's part of the customer relationship as well. Do they want to deal with you in store, in person, online? What else is there? Right? I'm old enough, if you look back 30 years ago, when I was picking out my Christmas present, it was not Googling and spending time on Amazon. Some of you may remember it was the Christmas catalogs that the large retailers sent out, right? That was their total marketing channel for Christmas sales. So, how will they decide their purchasing decision? How do they make it? How do we make money? And so how does it earn revenue from the value proposition you're giving to the customer? Is your revenue model a direct sale? Are you going to lease? One of the most popular things right now are subscriptions, right? Software as a service, SaaS, all those kind of things. What is the revenue model, right? Are we selling it outright? Are we going to lease it? All those kind of things. Who pays you, right? A lot of times the user and the person that pays for it are two different things, especially in business when you're selling to businesses, is that the decision maker and the user and the person who writes the check are a lot of times three different people. So you need to understand that goes back to your customer segments, is you may have a lot of segmented customer segments to sell to a hospital, right? There are a lot of people in the decision process. And so how long is the sales cycle? This is something we see a lot of entrepreneurs don't think about, right? If you're working with large companies, from the time you have your first introduction to the time you get a contract signed, it can be months. Then the minute you get a contract signed and ship your product and they take delivery of it, it can be another 2 to 3 months before you get paid. What's the point of that? Is you need enough cash flow to get you through 6 months if you're dependent on that $200,000 contract, because it's just not going to happen as quickly as your cash flow would like it to happen. When you move to the left side, this is kind of what we think of the kind of expense and cost activities of your business. And so what are the key activities, right? What are the uniquely strategic things that you need to be doing day to day? And that's going to change, but you want to rank priorities, right? So what's the one thing that we need to be doing today that moves us forward with this idea of providing value to our customers? So, what do you do uniquely that discovers that value, that creates that value proposition to the customers? So is it manufacturing that's your one thing, or is it marketing and design and innovation? We see a lot of first-time entrepreneurs with an invention and, I'm going to build a factory to do this. Probably not, right? I mean, being good at inventing things and making sure it solves the problem for the customer is a different skill set from managing a manufacturing organization. Maybe you need to look at contract manufacturing. So really, what is your one thing that you get paid to do? Could be sometimes more than one, but if you can get it to one, what do we really specialize at? That's a great thing. Is your one thing operational? Is it sales and marketing? Is it product development based? Is it intellectual property? Sometimes the intellectual property is where your value is. And that ties to this key resources. What do you need to make this work? What do we got to have to make this happen? It can be money, financial assets, that's a key resource, buildings, equipment, manufacturing equipment, whatever, that's a key resource. Intellectual property, right? Can we protect this thing? What could keep everybody from just copying it down the road? And trust me, if you have a good idea, it's going to get copied, right? There's just no question. So we hear a lot of people come to us as like, I can't talk to anybody, they'll steal my idea. Well, don't give them the secret recipe, but you got to be able to talk about your idea from the point of, here's who it's for, here's the problem it solves, and here's why you want to use me. I use the thing a lot, Kentucky Fried Chicken. They've sold a few pieces of chicken, but the secret recipe is still a guarded secret. And so think about that way, that if in your normal casual presentations and your elevator pitch, you can't figure out how to tell people that without giving them intellectual property, you're going nowhere, because nobody's ever going to know what you do. And so think about those assets. And the number one people don't think of is people, right? Human assets, team members, partners, advisors, all those people, as we tend to think of assets when we're starting a business as financial. Don't make that mistake. a lot of times the major component of value in a business is the team itself, because what they can do, be it problem solving, be it delivery, be it marketing, whatever, a lot of times is the value of the business. So don't ever forget that. Key partnerships. This is one that everybody's like, I don't want partners. We're not talking about owner partners. We're talking about who do you partner with out there in the world in your space, hopefully that knows something about your industry, that, you know, what can the company not do, right? And what should we not be doing? Is you can't do everything. So who should you partner with to do the activities you're not good at, don't have time for, don't have the talent for, whatever that may be. It could be manufacturing partners. Like I said earlier, do you really want to build a manufacturing plant, or do you want to build a company? And because sometimes you got to do both. Elon Musk had to do both. That's a little different story. When you're a billionaire, that's a little easier to do. Marketing partners. Who can we partner with our marketing, right? Who are great partners that could promote our business, our product, whatever that may be, that we could partner with so it's not so expensive, or they may be great marketers and we're not that good at it. We don't have a great marketing team, or we can't afford one yet. So how do you partner with others? Distribution partners, you know, Amazon, there's all kinds of distribution services, right? And so could you partner with that so that they're actually taking the orders, pulling the inventory, packing them and shipping them, that you don't need to have a local warehouse. Co-packers are something not on the slide here, but so if you're in the food or a lot of consumer products, you know, so a co-packer is really a contract manufacturer, right? So they make thousands of pies using your recipe, and you may be a bakery that never owns an oven other than for your test oven, right? So that's a co-packer. And then another thing people don't talk about is in partnerships is co-opetition, right? So do you have competitors that you could partner with because what you're doing is a new idea that needs to take bigger hold in the world before anybody makes any money? And a good example of this is what we're seeing right now in electric cars, right? So the car companies are partnering on a lot of things because they've got to get electric cars to be a big enough thing that they can afford to put in all the charging stations and all the things that need to happen to make the idea of electric vehicles work. So they're going to be strong competitors at a profit standpoint, but they've got to get the whole platform up to the level that any of them can start scaling it. So sometimes working with your competition is a good thing. Realtors have done this for years, right? So they have a multiple listing system so that you that has a buyer can sell a house I have listed to one of your customers. So they're kind of ways you work together that are good for both. Everybody wins is kind of co-opetition. Last thing, and really kind of the bottom of where do all the expenses flow to, is the cost structure of building your business. Most people we see spend way too much time on this up front and not enough time on how do we get customers, right? And so it doesn't matter what it costs, it doesn't matter how good your accounting is if you never have customers. And so you got to have those to prove any of this out. So what are the business's major cost drivers, right? Is it shipping? Is it marketing? In a lot of industries, you know, the widget may cost 80 cents to make, but the marketing budget for each one is $2, right? And then there's shipping and all those kind of things. So, but what are the major drivers of your cost, and how are they linked to your revenue, right? Do they change as your revenue goes up and down? And that gets into fixed costs versus variable cost, is, you know, economies of scale. If we order 100,000 at a time, what's our cost versus buying 1,000 at a time? And so all those are part of your cost structure. And then your cost to produce goods, labor, whatever that may be. Maybe you're paying it to a contract manufacturer and you don't have to break it down that way, but maybe you are actually dealing with direct labor. cost of sales, right? Are we paying commission? Are we selling through distributors that they've got to make a profit? So what does it cost to get the thing out the door and into the customer's hands? Which is kind of interesting. A lot of people come to us and say, I want to get it in Walmart. Well, you're probably never going to get a check from Walmart. They use large wholesalers because they don't want hundreds of thousands of vendors. The fewer vendors they have, the more power they have, and the less it is from an operational standpoint to pay with them and deal with issues and all those things. So there are costs to sales no matter which way you go at it. And then ongoing expenses, right? Expenses are the really non-product, office, telephone, insurance, all those kind of things are part of it. And then really, what are your startup costs? That's a little separate. How much money do we need to raise to get started? And what do we need to fund our cash flow until we hit break even or profitability? Because we hardly ever see a business that's profitable in the first year, and certainly not in the first 2 or 3 months. Let's take an example here that I like to work through and give you an idea of working through the business model canvas. Not going to do all 9 of them, but we'll do the first 4. And this is kind of interesting. So this is a story that one of my friends uses a lot in explaining the business model canvas and value to customers, right? So let's take a drill, right? A drill that you use to literally drill holes. Now, this one's been done before, but let's try to think of, without being too influenced of where it stands today, is that when you were that first guy that came up with an idea for a drill, what would your business model canvas have looked like? All right, so first off, who are your customers? Well, so without getting into too much detail, you probably got 2 customer segments here. You got homeowners, do-it-yourselfers, and then you have contractors, right? So 2 different customers. I'm trying to teach you a theory here is, all right, now let's look at the value proposition and how it's different for each one, all right? Now, let's also think about what problem are we solving? Nobody wants to buy a drill because they want to buy a drill. Why do you buy a drill? Because you want holes. It has nothing to do with buying a drill. So when you think of the problem, that's what the problem you're trying to solve is a easier, more consistent way to make holes in things, steel, wood, concrete, whatever that may be. That's the problem you're solving. Nobody back before drills were invented ever thought, what I really need, my problem is I need an electric drill. No, their problem was I need a way to get holes in these things. That's their problem. When you look at then the value proposition to that homeowner do-it-yourself, so they need an inexpensive and easy way to make occasional holes in wood, probably, maybe metal and concrete, maybe not. But to the contractor, they have a different value proposition, right? They're using that tool day in and day out, making hundreds of holes in concrete, steel, wood. It needs to be tough. It needs to be lightweight, right? So the homeowner might be interested in the $29 drill, to where actually a customer segment as well is the contractor who will pay a couple $100 for it because he needs it to be long lasting and dependable. So there's kind of a real short shot at understanding customers and value propositions and how they can differ according to different customers. So let's look at customer relationships real quickly. So the homeowner, they may be making their buying decisions based on social media or TV commercials or whatever that may be. To the contractor, he's probably making his decisions through tool shows, through the vendors he's going to pick up his wood every day, or those, he will do research online, right? Which is the toughest, which is the most lightweight for the money. And so, again, he knows that making holes is part of how he makes a living. So he's going to research that way differently than the homeowner wants it to be easy to use and cheap. That's all they're worried about. The contractor's willing, he knows how to use tools. So he's willing maybe to have a little better tool for more money. And then channels. So when you look at channels, and we'll talk mostly about marketing channels here, and really distribution channels. So, homeowners probably going to get it through a big box store, maybe online through, again, I'll use Amazon or Walmart.com, whatever. They might go to the big box home store. That's how they want it delivered, kind of how they're going to and where they're going to pick out what they want. Contractors are a lot more apt to buy from their current suppliers. If they're a concrete guy, they're probably would buy a drill maybe from the people that they buy their concrete tools from, or they may buy it from the larger rental houses, or there are specialty services out there. When you think of Hildy, that's their whole business, is to provide very high quality tools to contractors across the world. So that may be how they buy and make their decision and who they actually pay. And then last part on the revenue streams is, okay, again, are we selling them a drill? Are we going to lease them a drill? So I just mentioned Hildy. Hildy has basically a subscription service now. So here's the kind of tools you need every month. You pay us this subscription. You swing by our local warehouse and pick up the tools you need for a week at a time or a month at a time, and you just pay so much per tool on a monthly reoccurring subscription. You never buy it. We do all the maintenance, we do all the warranty. You don't have to deal with that. Because the last thing a contractor wants is, my drill broke last night, so I got to reschedule my job for tomorrow. Nope, if I'm under the subscription service, I can swing by Hildy, pick up my new drill, and I'm still on the job at 8 o'clock doing what I had planned for today. So again, see the difference in the two customers and the value proposition to them, the delivery method, pricing, everything. So that in a nutshell is a quick little example. We'll do some work later on in getting into the expense side of it. Just a little bit on the business canvas, why it's popular with entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. Companies now use this, large companies use this inside their innovation factories, inside their innovation teams, that fundamentally it delivers three things. So it's focus, right? So it's stripping away the 40 pages of a business plan that may or may not have a lot to do with the launch part. When you're in this discovery phase of trying to discover customers and what real value do we provide, and breaking down what's core and non-core. And flexibility, it's easy to tweak. It should change every day according to as you get new information. Business plans tend to be kind of static. Everybody lives in this world of you should update your business plan. I haven't found anybody that does that more than about once every 3 years, which usually that change comes when they get ready to get a new loan and have to take a business plan to a lender. That's usually when you see them work on the business plan. So this is very easy, all on one page. Again, use sticky notes. You don't even have to do permanent writing on these things. And then transparency. It lets your team, your investors, your partners, lets everybody quickly understand what your thinking is and how do you get to a successful launch or a successful product and actually build a successful business. So there's a quick down and dirty version of the business model canvas, how to use it, what it is, and why you should use it. So thanks again, and we'll see you at the Biz Foundry.